Okay, we're back. This is the third part of our Webflow export conversion process to a WordPress child theme using Ultimatum. And what we're going to do now is we're going to go and use our plug-in here, but like I said, you can use any text editor. You can FTP these up or however you want to do that, but I like using this tool. It's convenient. And I can come in here and we can see we have our Webflow child theme, and it provides us with a functions PHP and a style.css. And we're going to go ahead and just add a few folders that mimic our Webflow export. So we have a CSS and we have a JS folder and we have an images folder. Just like that. Okay, and I've gone ahead and uploaded the normalize and webflow.css into the CSS folder, and I've also uploaded all of our images there, so this is great. So one thing I like to do with all of my child themes is create a master.css, which gets included on every page. And then I also like to create a unique CSS file for each layout. So my home page uses a different layout than my blog pages, for example. And so what I'll do is I'll just follow the same naming convention as my layout. So I have a layout named home. I'm going to create a CSS file named home. Those are there. And so we need to figure out a way to be able to include those in our child theme, and we can do that using the functions PHP. And we also need to include the normalize and Webflow CSS files. So I've created a nice little function here called add global dependencies. This name can be anything you want as long as it's called down here. So this function by itself doesn't do anything until this is being called through the add action command. If I go ahead and comment that out, then and save this, it's not doing anything different than it was doing before. And that's why I'm going to break each of these things down into separate functions, so that if I ever need to troubleshoot, I can turn off the normalize and Webflow CSS while leaving my other rules active. So what this does is it basically gets some directories. One is a relative, the other is a absolute path, and we've also defined the path to the normalize.css. And what we're basically doing is saying, if this file exists in this folder at this destination with this file name, let's go ahead and use the enqueue style option that WordPress provides us. This is a unique name for that style. Allows us to target it with other functions if we decided to do that, but and then this gives us the full URL path to that file. So this is going to result in our head section of our HTML document having this style sheet loaded for us, and then we're going to do the same thing with the Webflow down here, and we'll go ahead and save that. If we come over here and refresh the page, we'll notice that it did change a little bit, not too much, but let's go ahead and just use Chrome's inspection tools, and let's just see if the function that we wrote in our functions PHP is working. And sure enough, we have Webflow and we have normalize. It's being included, so that's great. Notice the master and home CSS is not there yet, though. We need to create a special rule for that. So just like I mentioned before, I like to keep all this stuff separate, so we're just going to target the master. And what I've done here is both a master.css and a master.js can be included if they exist. So I've done the same thing. We've included our file paths. We've created the links and unique naming conventions for our variables here that look at these paths, and we're using the enqueue style for this one here. And notice that this is also a unique name for that. The master script is a little bit different. We have it in the JS folder. And you'll notice down here that we have a commented out or an option that's commented out, which allows us to load our script. By default, it's going to want to go in the header, but if this value is set to true, that will load it in the what we call the footer, or the just before the closing of the body tag of our HTML document. Sometimes we want it loaded after everything else is loaded. Other times we want it loaded in the head section. So, and then this here just defines that we have that this is we have a dependency on the jQuery library for this to function, and then of course this is just a version which you can make anything you want. But we've also the function has its unique name, add master dependencies, and we're calling that down here with the WP and Q scripts function. We'll go ahead and save that. And I'll be providing these files so you'll have access to all this code. But the next one is our layout specific one. We call it add layout dependencies, and what we have to do is we have to dump or we actually have to dip into the database and take a look at the table structure where we've stored all of our layout names, and say let's get the layout name for this particular page uses. That's defined in the page and post settings area, and again we have our paths to the directory and files for our child theme, and over here we're using a variable to basically say the layout name that's returned, we're going to look for a matching name for a .css file as well as a .js file. And just some slight differences here. For the unique name, I decided to also use that layout name for the unique name there. So we've kind of included that there, and then of course we have our relative path, and then the same thing for the JS, and then I've got a commented out section here if we want to load that in the footer or provide other options. We can choose to do that. And last but not least, I had mentioned that we have some image path issues. That's why none of our images are showing up here. Now I could use the media upload area, upload all these images there rather than include them in my child theme folder, and then just change all the URL paths that I've already included in all of those text widgets. But I'd prefer to have this as one package. So when I export this child theme and maybe give it to someone as a deliverable, they can install it, activate it, and as long as they have a home page that is assigned to the home layout, when they pull up that page, it will come up beautifully. Everything will be there, and if later they want to go in and override those images and use the WordPress built-in media functions and reference those file paths, they can do that as they feel free to do. So what this is going to do is it basically just modifies the built-in WordPress text widget to basically allow us to execute PHP code. So what we're going to do is we'll quickly see how that is going to affect the paths on the images. So refreshing this, just want to show you really quick how we now have the master and home files included. Even though we haven't put any rules in them, we did create the files. So we're going to see there's master CSS, and where is our home? There it is, home CSS. And if we want to see the order in which it loads, I think one of the newer plugins that Ultimatum added to the VC tables has a few that load after these, but normally these would be the last loaded style sheets. So we have normalized, Webflow, master, and home, but I've noticed that since they added the easy tables, maybe this is another thing that developers can adjust so that we can put our style sheets in after these two. So I don't think that there's really any see, all these look like they start with their own naming convention here, so I don't think we're going to have any conflicts with that. And if we look at this one here, Well, this one does have some generically named, we still have the Visual Composer stuff here, but up top, this hide text, that's something that we can input block level, who knows. Okay, so I'm not going to worry about that too much right now. What we want to do now is go ahead and get our style sheet information in there. So what we're going to do is come over to our temp999.webflow.css, go ahead and copy the contents of that, and I'm just going to paste it into home CSS. Now later, once I have this all set up, I might go back and just start moving stuff between home and master. For example, my header items and my footer items, I built those as partial layouts, which I can use on other pages. So if I include the styling rules that affect those two layouts and the content within them, I'll want those available in the master.css, because the home.css is only going to be loaded for any pages or posts that use the home layout. But for now, we're just going to put it all in one file to make it simple. And this is where we need to kind of start comparing our designs. And now already we can see that we have our structure starting to look very close to the Webflow version. So mainly just modifying our images, I think, will get us very, very close. So let's take a look. Alright, so back in our functions PHP, one of these things that was first defined here, the get style sheet directory URI, we can use this now in our templates and in our layout, and we'll go to header, and the first one does contain an image. So what we can do is come in here and just go open up our PHP, we'll choose to echo, and our path, we'll go ahead and close that statement, and then we'll close out the PHP, and it doesn't include a trailing slash, so we need to put that in too. And then we're going to use this a lot, so I'm going to go ahead and copy this. I'm going to go ahead and hit save, and we'll come over here, look at our nav links. Let's just go ahead and fix this, fix that. Probably change this out to using one of the built-in menus later, and we can look up the PHP code for that, or we could use the Ultimatum menu widget, but of course we're going to need to target items with the appropriate classes when we do that. So right now I'm just kind of cleaning up my links so that I can demo this to a customer, fix my image path there. We'll go ahead and save that, and I should be able to refresh, and my top menu looks very close outside of some Google fonts, so we're going to have to address that, but we'll do that here soon. Okay, so I went ahead and updated all of the image paths, so you'll see that I pasted that PHP code that echoes out our child theme directory. So this is going to be dynamic. It will allow our clients to upload this theme and install it, and it will always point to that directory, even if later they choose to change the name from Webflow to something else. We can do that. So you can see I've done that for all the images, and then I did the same thing for my footer partial, and when I refresh the page, we are very close to matching that design, and again, it is also responsive. So seem to kind of follow our grid there, and we're going to take this a step further in the next section, which is just fine-tuning a few of these rules, getting our Google fonts and how to identify those, and we'll finish that up in the last and final video tutorial.